Now, taking the two very closely linked philosophies of Hegelianism and Marxism together, what would you say has been their most important, or some of their most important, positive contributions to human thought? What have they given us that's really useful in our understanding of the world?
Well, it's clear from what we've said that the idea of history as a process which affects every aspect of our thinking and our ideas is a crucial thing that's come from Hegel and Marx.
It became almost the dominant thing in the 19th century, didn't it? As with evolution, seeing everything as having evolved, having developed.
We can't now imagine looking at societies or ideas as timeless entities independent of their history. And that's something that we owe to Hegel and Marx. And that's one very important thing. The other thing is this notion of freedom, the idea that is distinct from the liberal notion that we cannot be free unless we control our destiny, unless we, instead of being blown about by the winds of economic circumstances for Marx or the unseen hand of reason for Hegel, unless we actually take control of it, realize our own power, realize the capacity of human beings collectively to control our destiny and grasp that. That may, as you said, have some dangerous tendencies in it, but it's a very important idea, and I don't think it's one that we can ever give up once we've been presented with it by Hegel and Marx.
Now, I do have to ask you about the minuses as well as the pluses. The ideas of both of these philosophers have become associated in the 20th century, since their deaths, with totalitarianism. Hegel with German nationalism culminating in Hitler, and Marx with communism, which was seen at its most horrific in the state created by Stalin. Both of these societies were societies that murdered millions of their own people. Now, I'm not suggesting that either of the two philosophers would ever have expected that, and certainly not that they would have wanted it. But they were both philosophers who regarded the embodiment of ideas in history, in institutions, in social reality as being an essential feature of ideas, yet when their own ideas were so embodied, they had these catastrophic results. Why was that?
Well, I think their own ideas were misembodied. I don't think you can really trace Hegelian ideas at all in Hitler's kind of racist nationalism. You can't find that kind of racism.
They said so, but you think that was a complete misrepresentation?
It was a complete misrepresentation of Hegel in that case, certainly.
Yes.
And also, and it's perhaps the ultimate irony in what happened to Marx. Marx, as I've been saying, was a philosopher of freedom. He cherished freedom. He hated subordination. He was once asked by his daughter to write down what the vice that he most detested was. He replied, servility. Servility, the very vice, the very thing you needed to survive in Stalin's totalitarianism, of course. And yet it's true that these ideas did get misapplied, did get distorted.
Well, now why? What is there about the ideas that led to this outcome?
I think in the end there's a faulty view of human nature. Partly there's an attempt to show a greater unity than really exists between human beings. And we could trace this to Hegel's notion of mind or Geist as something which is above and beyond the differences between individual minds. But we find it also in Marx and in the idea that if you change the economic circumstances, you'll change human nature, and then we will all overcome the divisions between one and another, the division between my interest and your interest and our individual interests and the interests of society. They will all disappear once we get rid of the economic structure which leads us to compete in the marketplace for money and wealth and so on. Now, it seems, unfortunately, that has proven false, that you can change the economic basis, but you don't get rid of the divisions between reason and desire, between my interest and yours, or between individual and society. That in fact what happens once you make it impossible or very difficult for people to compete with each other for wealth is they then start competing for status or for power or something of that sort. And that's no better than it used to be. In fact, you could say that in the case of Stalin's society, it proved to be worse. So I think that Marx was mistaken in thinking that human nature would change.
Thank you very much, Professor Singer.